biggest one I liked was the NFL players.
Yes.
And not the name players, not those superstars, but the regular players who were saying, I could be George Floyd.
Think about it.
I could be George Floyd.
We're all on.
White, black, and all, because 2 o'clock in the morning, I get stopped coming from San Antonio to Houston, and I got a 928 S4 Porsche, and I was humping. I'm doing about 110. The man pulled me over.
That might be noticeable.
Hey, that's noticeable. And the first thing you do when I got out the car, I saw he just came to my chest. So I went to the back of the car, and I sat on the bumper and I bent down and gave him up, because you're the man in charge.
Exactly.
You're not going to be standing up. But the thing we're seeing, and I special guest will be able to expound on it too, seen it in a professional life, this has been going on. Now the light is being seen, and everybody is coming out together.
Yes, it has.
You know, the 3 words, enough is enough.
By all means. And this has garnered world sympathy. It's touched people from hither to thither. I mean,
yes.
New Zealand, people are in the streets doing the haka.
Wait. I'm going to say, can you imagine the protesters doing the war dance in front of the police?
Come on.
Oh, man.
Either they're going to throw their shields and batons down, or going to start locking and loading.
No, that's right.
Because when you see them doing the haka before the soccer matches,
mercy.
Man,
that's incredible.
Somebody
that's
get
incredible.
a chicken little in them.
I saw there was a young lady from the Amish community. She's there with a dress below her knees and some stockings on, and she looked like somebody said from the children of the corn. And she's got a sign saying Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
When the Amish come for you, you know you're really screwed up.
Oh, because they very poor.
Very poor. They don't participate.
And then here come the Amish. Yes. Only thing they didn't do was have the horse and buggies. Can you imagine 100 horses and buggies come looking like rawhide?
That could stop traffic.
Or wagon trains. And they sitting there, oh man.
If you're going to interrupt the supply chain, bring horse and buggies.
There you go. There you go.
But we have a young man here today, and we're so proud to have him aboard. Dr. Marcel Thompson, MD, OBGYN. Will you give it up?
All right.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing this morning, Dr. Thompson?
I'm doing really great, and really to kind of expand on what you're talking about, it's interesting that this is Men's Health Month, and when we're looking at Black men, and since this is Men's Health Month,
Absolutely.
and looking at one of the leading mortalities, in particular in the age group, is not heart disease, it's not drugs or anything. It's the mortality of our young Black men being killed by the police.
Is that right?
It's the violence that's killing just Black men. So I think as it's more kind of fitting as we're here then looking at the statistics of what is killing particularly our Black youth and addressing that particular aspect of things. Even it's crazy that we've been in this COVID-19 era, and it seems as though the COVID that was something we talked about last year.
Yes.
It's in the relativity of the things that have been occurring for the past week or two. It almost seems as that is almost a little or pales to the severity of what we're doing.
Interesting.
It's taking a back seat.
Right, which is even interesting.
Yeah. We don't see the numbers of those who caught or the number of deaths. And it's amazing how big little things, can set other big little things back.
By all means. It's as if social justice has trumped social distancing for this moment. And fellas, I don't know how you feel about this personally, but if indeed what you're saying statistically, death and morbidity among black, or mortality among black males is contributively owed to violence of some sort. There needs to be a moratorium on what we do from a policing point of view. That's a strong need for police reform, guys. Because this brought it to light, and as you mentioned, it's not getting worse, it's getting filmed.
It's getting fun.
Yes.
It's getting filmed. And I think it's, a couple of people, when companies have different issues, so far as with the sexual harassment issues different, and the financial responsibilities of the companies are, in particular in our case, hospitals, when that quality issue becomes more of a financial burden to that particular industry or entity, then different quality measures are put in place so that those different issues are addressed or educated within their particular entity. For instance, with sexual harassment, companies before had no real true sexual harassment policies, and it made it mandatory that their executives, that their people be trained in how to recognize the sexual harassment, how to recognize bias within themselves, and then that protects the company. And I think when you are looking at things or issues such as police brutality and the reason why it continues to go on, if the police or the cities were accountable to financially, accountable to what they were doing and what their people were doing, the behavior would change.
Sure. So in other words, if we would somehow stop indemnifying bad police conduct outside of the training, outside of whatever their, if you will, their training manuals are, then maybe if they're exposed to legal matters, if my boss is exposed to some kind of litigation, the training changes.
Right, because that's what happens, particularly I think in every industry, when the executives, when they're held accountable, or in the case like even when in 2008 with all these industries were having to be bailed out, it was the board members who were okay. Even though you're at the board level, there should be some accountability, some type of accountability measures that this particular company has to abide by in order to really affect the change. If there's no if there's no accountability at the top, then why would things change? But when if this is what it is, that every good leader of a company always says the buck stops here.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if the buck stops here, the buck stops there with, if that police officer that's representing that police district is a reflection of that police, is a reflection of the city. And if that was to occur, then the city and the police chief, everything, they take full responsibility. And if that police officer has not been properly trained, if that police officer hasn't been properly profiled, it takes a certain psych profile to do certain jobs. When pilots go to train, they have to get a psych profile.
Yes.
I can go, I'm going to backtrack. You remember Hill Street Blues? You remember Chips? For the first time, we actually saw morning briefings with the police before they went out on the street.
Indeed.
They'd let you know, boom, what's going on, what happened last night, what we're aware of. And like the gentleman, the captain said, okay, y'all be careful out there.
Yes.
Now, even though we've seen everything's going on, but saw what happened up in Baytown. You saw what happened to Tacoma. You saw when the two police officers pushed a 79-year-old man down, bleeding in his head, out his ear. Fellas, don't you see what's going on?
That's
and
it.
we're still seeing boom, kaboom, kaboom. And as we were sitting in the green room before we came on air, we saw where the mayor of DC put 2 blocks. Black Lives Matter.
Interesting.
Because we going to
Interesting.
make it an awareness, as you say, Doc.
Right, and it's interesting that we're talking about the Colin Kaepernick and the Colin Kaepernick was trying to raise awareness then, and that was in a peaceful way. And the backlash of his peaceful protests of taking a knee, and the backlashes, and the president, get those SOBs out of here, and the all the anger and mist that was there. I'm sure people around the world, and then now what do you see is the police chiefs, then what are they doing? Taking a knee.
Taking a knee.
So we've come full circle to the exact.
We owe that young man an apology, do we not?
But no. I'm agree with you. My wife, her dad was Navy. My father was Air Force. And I'll be honest with you, the first time we both saw it, it's like, what is he doing? Because the word wasn't out there about police brutality. It's just like we just saw Colin kneeling during the national anthems. And I'm like, whoa, I don't like that. But then now we see, since they've taken the time to bring the message out about police brutality, that opens up the door. That lets the light come in.
Right.
So it's a big difference.
It would have been great if he were to, if that issue would have been addressed of, hey, why is he doing it? He had everything to lose.
But he didn't speak.
Right.
He didn't let it be known of the situation because why? Unlike what was happening those 4 or 5 years ago, there was no video. Nobody saw it.
Interesting.
But it was happening.
It's
now to see, now you can build those blocks.
to your point, Dr. Thompson, it's worth noting that the great Jackie Robinson, whom everybody considers at the top of the iconography, never stood for a national anthem. Refused to stand for a national anthem. He had his own causes, and he spoke about it strongly.
And he was armed
Perfectly. Yes, sir.
from Fort Hood.
Yes,
And that's what,
is that right?
Right.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of that.
He was stationed. That's where he got basic training.
How about
Kaepernick, that was his main thing he was going to not stand. But I think, when he started looking at the history, and he had a conversation with a Special Forces guy. And with this conversation with the Special Forces guy, he's like, well, hey, if you really want to honor veterans, take a knee.
Yes.
But then that kind of got co-opted into something that morphed into something else. And like with this case, where, we have people out on the street and they get caught in the looting and everything gets co-opted as a means of and it's totally
Good point. We're going to get into a little bit more of that after this break, gentlemen. I appreciate it. We're going to go to a momentary break. Thank you.
All right.
This is Dr. Gabriel Arango with Arango Chiropractic Clinic, and today I'd like to inform you that Doctors of Chiropractic are primary contact healthcare providers who provide essential care, including but not limited to managing acute and urgent musculoskeletal conditions. These services are critical for managing cases that otherwise could end up in the emergency rooms, worsening an already difficult situation. It is important to note that chiropractic services also keep in place health care providers, first responders, and others who have physically strenuous jobs that support critical infrastructure, such as truck drivers who continue to ensure that America's healthcare and food supplies get to where they are needed during the COVID-19 pandemic. This information was brought to you by Arango Chiropractic Clinic and Edge Radio, 1540 AM and 101.7 FM.
Are you ready to be pushed over the edge? Edge Radio, coming soon to 1540 AM.
And we're back. We're here at Edge Radio, 1540 AM, 101.7 FM. We're on Edge Radio, where truth matters. We're having the Athletes United Hour, where leadership is in our DNA. As we went to the break, we were discussing looting, perhaps, and our misconduct within the protests. And gentlemen, I don't know where you come from. Where I come down on this is I'm from the 60s. And frankly, I don't understand peaceful demonstrations. I understand demonstrations to disrupt. And there's a Western definition of disruption. I don't want the overnight couriers of the bank to be able to take their notes to the Federal Reserve, because that gets somebody's attention, like right away. I don't want the 18-wheelers to be able to manage and offload their goods, because that snaps the supply chain and gets somebody's attention, like right now. What I need is your attention. I don't need your soft praise because I marched peacefully around the corner and said Black Lives Matter. I want to disrupt business as usual. Something oddly vexing has happened in the economy, in the body politic, in the lives of human beings, and we need that recognized. I need the president to recognize it, I need the governor to recognize it, I need the mayor to recognize it, and I need my brethren to recognize it. Something needs to change. That's how change is permeated, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think, we it's great to march and everything, but the one thing that what you are alluding to is the economic power that is occurring. We, unfortunately, as African Americans, we're not really financially collectively sharing our economic power within ourselves to translate that into exactly what you're saying. Now, I think when you look at any other particular races, any other particular people, those who are controlled, who contribute to the gross national product, those who contribute instead of more consumers, are treated somewhat differently.
Sure.
There's no when you look at the injustices in right now, what's allowed, Trump or the conservative aspects, they pick on those who are of the weak. So, when the Latino diaspora, those countries are of the weak, they're not financially, strong or whatever, they're going to pick on those. It's much different how the Asian Americans are treated, how the different people, even in the midst of the Muslims, how we treated Saudi Arabia, how do we treat different Iraq, how do we treat the people, and how we treat the governments, two different things.
Well, nobody is treated in the history of this nation like what is referred to as African descendants of slaves, ADOS. I read statistics the other day. It was quite disturbing. Bobby Joe, someone said that, I guess immediately preceding the Great Depression in the 30s, that the United States government made an investment in its people that it probably hadn't made up to and including Medicare. And that was to offer practically 0% loans for new construction, for homes, which, as we all know, carries generational wealth forward. And from the 30s up until the early 70s, a minuscule amount of those loans went to the African American community.
Yeah, just a little bit. But look what happened. Look what the black community leaders did. They built their own downtown, their loan store, their church, the businesses, the movie theaters. They made their own municipal
Correct.
organization and all. And they look at even with Freemantown here. Freemantown in Houston. Okay? They had the wall, people had to cross and go downtown to work. But Freemantown, everybody came to Freemantown. Babe Ruth, during the exhibition game, came to Freemantown. Because this is where it was happening.
Yes.
Yes. With the example of the PPP loans and the lack of, I think, black-owned banks. And with the lack of the black-owned banks and then the ability of community to get capital to provide for those particular shops and stuff that continued to happen. And we saw, when Bank of America on the PPP loans, Bank of America, all the bigger banks, that money went to their bigger people. that was in the part of their banks. It didn't go, they didn't flow to the smaller, and unfortunately a lot of the African American and the Latino to bank, shop owners and stuff. So I think that was a prime example of how when you want to control so far as the capital of a given community. Now we're living in a time where I think we're African Americans and Latino. There are a lot of us who have some substantial amount of capital that we can park our money. Why would I park my money in Bank of America, who takes my money to lend out to other people, not of me, not of my kind, but of someone else's kind? Why don't I park? I got to park my money someplace. If I have excess capital, why don't I park that money in maybe a black-owned entity, Federal Credit Union?
That's interesting.
That uses your capital, which they would already use anyways out, but they're using your capital to promote different businesses within that given community.
Because think of this, a flower shop, a boutique, ladies' boutique, a restaurant that everybody knows. This gentleman, ladies making money doing business in the community, now they're giving back to the community.
Correct.
And that's the thing that you just mentioned, we're lacking.
Right, that flower shop owner cannot go to Bank of America and expect Bank of America to then say, "Oh yeah, here take this loan, take what you need." And we found that I think the COVID and the financial crisis that we're at illustrates that point to the most. Is that we have to do for ourselves in providing capital to ensure that there's capital that the baker, the flower shop owner, that the physician, that everything, that those community, those businesses, in order for our community to thrive, to survive and to thrive, we cannot rely on outside commerce or outside capital to sustain the future of our future.
Well, now
So
listen.
let's do this, Mel. We're here for Dr. Thompson. Let's talk about what Dr. Thompson, how he's helping the community.
Yeah, think about it.
Damn,
Think about it.
doctors helping the community.
This is
Let's
Edge
get
Radio,
to the
my
meat,
brother. This
right?
is Edge Radio, where truth matters.
Yeah, let's go.
Let me ask you a question, doctor. At some point, you decided, I'm going to be a doctor. Yeah, at some point in your life. What drove your particular discipline? I mean, why obstetrics?
Well, right. I mean, I was very blessed and understood what I wanted to do from 6th grade. And obstetrics are just women's health and kind of intrigued me. Initially, I grew up around a lot of women. So, for me, women's issues were somewhat discussed, particularly that time of puberty with a lot of women. And I had,
We know about that, do we not?
Yeah.
And so, opportunities were arise and blessings. And then when I went to medical school, it was something that still intrigued me. I liked the idea of doing surgery. I like the idea. It's a pretty good, good profession.
Interesting.
So then now I've transitioned to, I don't do any more deliveries. And I really, as I've gotten older, I'm a 52-year-old man. And
Baby.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm at that.
That was 50 years old.
I'm at that transition where you two gentlemen definitely know from when, there's a difference between being 40 and 50.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that change. And even with my patients, with my female patients, and, they're no longer wanting to have, earlier in my career, everybody just wanted to have babies, Now women transition to reaching menopause. They're going through different life, physical life changes. They're going through those particular things. And so there's different treatments that I do that address that. But I was finding out that, women, what makes, it's in the complete, she has a partner. And intimacy is part of having and being in a relationship.
Oh, for sure.
And so you've been married to somebody 20, 30 years, and he's going through, hormonal issues as testosterone. She's going through hormonal issues. And intimacy sometimes takes a back seat, and we don't really understand why are we emotional, physically changing for this person that I love. So part of my addressing with a lot of my female patients, and I'm like, part of your issues, I'm like, we got to get your guy. in here. You know, if his, you know, the ability for her to have quality intimacy is based upon the ability that her partner, she's a heterosexual, if her partner is not very active, well, why is he active? So that led me into understanding men's health and understanding what's going on with men's health, you know, with the testosterone, with the different changes that are going, as I'm going through those changes.
Sure.
You know, so I come from a unique perspective in the fact of, you know, I understand women's health, and I understand so far as, you know, from a women's perspective of the changes that she is going through and how to address those changes. In a couple setting, I come from that perspective, not only that I can kind of talk to her, but I can talk to him as a male, from a male perspective, and I understand the different changes that you're going through. These are the things that we can help you to get to a better point healthy-wise. If you're healthy and she's healthy, your intimacy is healthy.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
Well, let me ask you this, Doc, you know, and understand the ladies, anytime we say OBGYN, everybody automatically female. Female. And you know, the husband, the boyfriend take the other to the doctor.
Right.
Now, how is it that you've been approached by people to talk to the male? How does that go about? How do you, that's be interjected to you?
Yeah.
From that particular perspective, it's more so far as on an intimacy way, and a lot of times in how I market or produce myself is not necessarily maybe as a GYN, because OBGYNs are we fit in two dynamics. We are primary care physicians and we are specialists.
Okay.
And I function as a primary. I was in the Army, and so it's not that I'm comfortable with treating men. I'm more comfortable with treating women, but like I said, I'm also more comfortable treating men. Now our clinic, I'm bringing on a male nurse practitioner, and that he is devoted to men's health. And from the full spectrum of men's health, we look at, so far as, the diet, we look at the hormone aspect of what's going on with them, look at their lifestyle, look at where we're going. They may come to me with an intimacy problem. Either it's erectile dysfunction or sexual enhancement. I had a young man in my office the other day. He may be coming here for erectile dysfunction, but his diabetes isn't managed. He is probably overweight. And, I could give him different medications, different therapies to improve his sexual health, but his sexual health is really truly dependent upon his physical health.
Okay. So hormones, which that term is typically associated with sexual intimacy, has broad implications of what you're telling us. It's not all about.
Oh, most definitely. The aspect of how hormones play in just the general well-being of the individual, both men and women.
Give us three, if you will, important hormones or critical hormones in the human body.
Well, definitely for women, it's estrogen. For men, it's testosterone, thyroid management. There's growth hormone management. There's cortisol levels, which measure, your blood sugars. So it's all of the understanding of all of the particular hormones, understanding how they work in sync to get the desired effect of the patient. A lot of times people go to the physician and they come with one particular aspect. Say, for instance, like with a man, they may, I have erectile dysfunction. And, the men are coming to you for, well, I have erectile dysfunction. But they become to the same doctor, and the doctor's been managing their diabetes. They never really addressed the patient is coming to you for erectile dysfunction. Now, if you address what he's coming to you for, and you address that issue, but the bigger issue is the diabetes, that you've been trying to get the patient to understand why you need to get better control of your diabetes. Physicians just haven't connected the men to understand. Once they understand that the better health-wise you are, the guys want to be, go all night, go all day or whatever, but can't go up a flight of stairs. So, come on, it's not a rocket science.
That's
to
interesting.
whether, you know,
Underlying causes
Yeah.
of course.
it's
Well,
not
let
been-
me get you one question so our viewers understand. Tell them a little bit about you. You're from Houston, and how was it like me when I was first in college? I wasn't thinking about being a professional athlete. I wanted to be a coach. That was my degree, but lo and behold, what happened? How was it that you became the OBGYN doctor, not a vet, not a heart,
Yes.
lung doctor,
Yeah.
please?
And that was, the case. I was very active in sports, and like I said, I went to high school for health professions. So,
Okay.
then high school for health professions was was very exposed. I was seeing patients when I was a junior in high school, and things were very very laxed. Back in the day, you could see I was doing female exams when I was in junior and high school.
Okay.
As I progressed and went through my different rotations, how I chose OBGYN was that my temperament was that, and like I said, I like doing some surgery, but I didn't like surgery all the time. I like the aspect of helping people, helping couples, and so that led me more into that aspect of being OBGYN.
Huh. It's 11:31 after the hour. It's 31 minutes after the hour. We're here at 1540 AM and 101.7 FM Edge Radio, where truth matters. We're here with Dr. Marcel Thompson, who's enlightened us tremendously this morning on a variety of topics. And the athlete, the legendary Bobby Joe Reed. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
(281-744-0446). For more information, call 281-744-0446.
1540 AM and 101.7 FM Houston, Pasadena, Clear Lake, Galveston.
This is Dr. Gabriel Arango with Arango Chiropractic Clinic, and today I'd like to inform you that doctors of chiropractic are primary contact healthcare providers who provide essential care, including but not limited to managing acute and urgent musculoskeletal conditions. These services are critical for managing cases that otherwise could end up in the emergency rooms, worsening an already difficult situation. It is important to note that chiropractic services also keep in place health care providers, first responders, and others who have physically strenuous jobs that support critical infrastructure, such as truck drivers who continue to ensure that America's healthcare and food supplies get to where they are needed during the COVID-19 pandemic. This information was brought to you by Arango Chiropractic Clinic and Edge Radio, 1540 AM and 101.7 FM.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal
And we're back. We're back with Dr. Marcel Thompson, OBGYN, and Bobby Joe Reed, the legendary Rocket. As we went to break, we were discussing hormones and how it impacts human lives and how it impacts the length of our lives, if you will. Doctor, tell us that there is hope. Give us something to feel good about today.
Oh, there is very, very much hope. And today, our understanding and the technology has gotten to where we're able to, provide the body with hormones, and hormones are a way of us maintaining vitality. We have two things. Once you get a little bit more mature, and I'm at the early stage of maturity. We want longevity. With longevity, we want vitality. Nobody wants to be old and don't do anything. As we go into these years, we want to be able to have a very active life, a very life in which one that our bodies can engage. Not only our bodies, but our minds can engage. And I think a lot of research and information, particularly, and the advent of the internet, because people are now going to research, like the plastic bottles, like the foods that we're eating, what's our diet, the whole rage with organic, and understanding that what's being fed to us, and the need to have the particular hormones have been with us, in our diet for years. It's the reason why that chicken looks so plump. It's the reason why, go back in the day, but when you were on the farm, don't gargantuan chickens like that. They wouldn't eat that. But, so they adding, it's added hormones, added different things that are into our diet.
Interesting.
And also the nutrients that we are eating are devoid of a lot of minerals that were responsible to clear some of these hormones and to clear things. And so the research is now kind of recycling back into how is all this all put together.
Yes.
And, our job, I think, as physicians or as practitioners is to try to dissect, what's out there and what particular types of hormones or what particular types of therapies that we can provide to the patient that adds vitality, because that's at the end of the day, everybody, you can have a lot of money, you have been successful in your career, but it doesn't mean anything. You can't remember your name, nor can you get off the couch.
But it's so funny when we look at everything's going back. First, eat a lot of red meat was good.
Right.
Then it came up, no, we don't need to eat that much red meat. Then chicken, then fish. Drop something on the ground, you can pick it up, eat it, because you had the 5-second rule. Thank you, Jesus. But everybody keeps coming back and changing everything. And just before we came on air, and Mel's gonna give him a call-in number, but you remember when you with your significant other or your wife, and she started going crazy, and people said, "Man, what's wrong?" She got it from her mama. That's what we blamed every day.
Yeah.
It was nothing hormonal. She got it from her mama.
Correct.
That's interesting.
And that was case closed.
And along those lines, the aspect and dialogue and discussion with the advent of the internet and like with women, with women, the discussion of having an orgasm or being satisfied was never, a breach discussion, but as women started talking, and along with the productions of like the women's liberation movement, and they started, coming out, women started talking, well, hey, I like having orgasms too.
Yes.
I like that aspect too.
What about me?
Right. And a lot of the research, and as we start to understand those old dogmas or those old paradigms of thinking and just attributing to, well, that's just because they're that way. We now are starting to understand that she's that way because it's hormonal that way. Me and my wife go through that, a lot of, you know, and me being the gynecologist, you know, she's like, you know, why am I this way? I'm like, you know, it's hormones. But,
So you got to bring your work at home.
right. But, you know, it's like when I'm at home, I'm not.
You got to bring the work home.
I was like, it's this baby, but since she's Dr. Mom at home and I'm just, you know, Marcel at home,
And then you go,
after a while it takes some type of, you know,
That's interesting.
has to be co-signed by some doctor.
So, doctor, is stress a factor in hormonal levels? And
Oh, most definitely. And I think what we're finding in particular now with the COVID and everything that's happening now, even with the COVID, that's one reason why we have gained. I know I gained COVID pounds. You know, when we're locked in.
You're locked in.
Of it, you know, we a lot of us ate. A lot of that was for, you know, when you're stressed, your cortisol levels go up.
Interesting.
Because your cortisol levels go up, it starts to it makes you want to like, and then you found yourself snacking.
Now you have kids?
Yeah.
How old are they?
I have a 21, a 16-year-old, and an 11-year-old.
oh, that's some stress in there.
Now that's stress. I imagine you do the. Go ask your mama.
My wife says I don't necessarily have stress, but that I'm a carrier. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but we have a lot of onlookers here that I'm sure are just as curious as we are. And if you have a question to ask the doctor, our call-in line is 281-587-1540. We're here on Edge Radio at 1540 AM and 101.7 FM, and we're going to take a small break.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal cord injuries get the quality medical care, rehabilitation, and housing they need when they come home. They stay with our fallen heroes for the long term, offering counseling, job training, and support to help them regain the freedom and independence they fought so hard for, all at no cost to them. Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. To learn more about how you can help, visit pva.org. That's pva.org. We will never leave a fallen comrade behind.
Are you ready to be pushed over the edge? Edge Radio, coming soon to 1540 AM and 101.7 FM Houston, Pasadena, Clear Lake, Galveston.
All right, everybody in the car, let's go.
What are we gonna do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing too?
I don't see why.
How long does it take?
And we're back. 1540 AM, 101.7 FM. And we're in Edge Radio for Truth Matters. It's 44 minutes after the hour, and we continue our conversation with Dr. Thompson and the athlete Bobby Joe Reed.
Hello.
Listen, Doctor. We're talking hormones, we're talking stress, we're talking Men's Health Month, and I understand June is.
Correct.
Okay. If indeed this mask, can you solve that issue for us? Can you give us some sanity on that, or tell us, or at least clarify if it's effective or not, a cloth mask?
Oh, the cloth mask.
Mm-hmm.
Initially the study, if you have the virus and you don't know that you have it. So it's a lot of times, the flu virus goes out. Every year there's different flu viruses, and you'll get it. But your immunity will, depending on where you're at with your immunity, depending on whatever your comorbidity, you take it in, you may get a little sick or whatever, and then you keep moving. But you have it. So the purpose of the mask is so that they're not, it's limiting the spread. However, the virus is the particles, that was the reason why we had the N95 mask. Because the N95 mask can N95 due to the fact that it could block out 95% of the particles that was in that.
That's what they mean.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right.
Which part of it was the aspect of the virus, coming in. So if the virus, the mask in itself, if a person is truly infected, it may limit the amount of the viral particles that are going to be emitted and that someone else will inhale, but it's just limiting that amount and stuff. So it's not the fact, and if you have that's why I was recommending that you wear an N95 mask, or that at least the personnel wear N95 so they don't inhale with those particular viral particles.
You mentioned the term comorbidity. I'm going to presume that somebody out there is as dumb as I am, so please explain that to us if you will. And the call-in line again is 281-587-1540. Doctor?
The comorbidities mean if you're having high blood pressure, diabetes, if you're having stress, these are things that you contribute to the illness or the general wellness of the individual. So a lot of the reason why we have a big disparity between how many black folks are dying is because it all stemmed from the fact that these black folks weren't getting the proper health care in the first place. So if you had the diabetes, or your diabetes is not well controlled, not well managed, to the point to where you're starting to affect whether your kidneys, your lungs, or whatever, when the virus comes along, it sees you, that person's immune system is already somewhat depressed. So the virus comes along, it doesn't help it. So it only exacerbates what was already kind of going on present before. So individuals who are older individuals, or anybody who has a suppressed or depressed immune system, they're more vulnerable to the virus. So, staying healthy, getting back, doing, your proper diet, having a better control of your blood sugars, your thing. Now, a lot of times, sometimes some people say, well, I know somebody and they were doing the same thing and they were healthy and blah, blah, and they died. There's always going to be, I think, outliers on this, but when we see that the majority of the people, particularly who started to get on the ventilators, they had other comorbidities, other illnesses that kind of contributed to that.
It's one thing I noticed, my wife and I, we talked about it. Look at how it has affected the United States of America. And you look up north, Minnesota, cheeseheads. Here's in the South, good old boys, cowboys. Go on the East Coast. You got the Broadway people, the classical. Go out the West and you have the beachheads and all. And in the middle, the country, Western and all. But look at the difference of how Spain and Germany, Norway and England, how they've all said, it's more or less they were all on one page. We weren't on one page.
Yeah, correct.
That's the mind-boggling stuff. We're German. We're Norwegians. This is our country. But here, everything is just so.
And that's been I think the fault of, probably the administration, with the inconsistency. When they first came out, there was really no true plan, even from the medical side,
there you go,
of how we're going to address this. This isn't issue because of the presidents and the they're Fauci and FD, CDC is saying one thing, he's saying, and the messaging was so different.
It was very different.
And we see, which is the prime example of how one is doing with the protest. When some states are very hard on protests, some states are very lenient on protests, because on the national, there's no national address of how we deal with this one particular issue that affects us all, regardless of geographical region or regardless of the color, that is still going to affect us. And I think the lack of leadership between on the national, setting that tone, setting that, okay, this is how we're we're going to do testing. This is how the testing. We went through 4 weeks, four.
Anybody knew what to do?
And we still don't know.
Yeah.
It's really,
Well, just put it this way.
consensus.
Put it this way. We're now in hurricane season. You can't go into H-E-B or Walmart, Kroger's, and they got the signs up of how to prepare.
Right.
Then come tornado season. Tornado Alley through Oklahoma. Everybody knows what. There's a message given. This is it, what we do. But as you mentioned, it was nothing to say, wow.
Right. Imagine if each particular, store had a different way of preparing for a hurricane. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank our guest, Dr. Marcel Thompson, MD, for the enlightenment, information, and hope he's brought us. Doctor, will you come back and visit us again, please?
I will come back and visit you.
Okay. Good
honor, Doc.
And
Thank
people can reach me at my website is venuscenters.com.
VenusCenters.com. Let's say that loud. Dr. Marcel Thompson.
You're located where?
I'm located in the heart of Bel Air. Between Biscayne and Rice.
Okay.
So we welcome both men and women and stuff for our patients, and would love to just bring the patients in. Let me explain to how everything works together with the.
That's perfect. That's
And
perfect.
the thing about where you're located, people should know, if it's traffic on 610, Rice gets you from Post Oak all the way down to the to the other side of
He
Post
speaks to
Oak.
knowledge. He speaks to knowledge.
Well, we want to thank you, Doc. It's an honor.
That's
By all
very
means.
cool. Please have me back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is the Athletes United Hour, and Bobby Joe, what radio show are we on?
Which one is it?
Edge.
Edge Radio.
Where what matters?
The truth.
Truth matters. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.